Yeah, hello guys. You are welcome once again to the Java Academy. This series here is basically an object-oriented programming series where we are going to be discussing some of the most important features of object-oriented programming. So we are going to be starting basically with encapsulation. Okay. So yeah, so we're starting basically with encapsulation, and so we'll proceed gradually while building a number of beautiful stuffs with all of the concepts we are going to be learning. So before we get started, we can we need to take a look at some basic concepts that are basically involved in object-oriented programming. So some of those concepts involve stuff like classes, class, objects, instance variables, okay, and then constructors. So based on all of these four terms that I've mentioned here, we are actually going to expand on the concept of encapsulation. So firstly, when we say a class is basically where we teach our objects how to behave. I'll repeat that. A class is where we teach our objects how to behave. Or so what this implies is that in a particular class, you define what your objects would look like and how they would behave. So imagine a particular class like an account class. In that account class, I could have some attributes. Bear in mind that the attributes are basically how that class would look like. So any object that is of that class would have all of those would be capable of having a copy of those attributes. So, for example, any account class, when you walk up to a bank, you want to open an account, right? Basically, what you are trying to do is you want to create an object of the account class of that bank. That's it. So you create an object of that class, then you save that object with the bank. Okay, so that account would have attributes like your first name, your last name, your social security number or bank verification number. It would have your address and so on like that. Okay, so the class would now lay a blueprint for how the objects would look like. So meaning that I'm going to have an account class that would have certain attributes, first name, last name, and so on, all of those attributes. Then every object or every client that walks up to the bank with the aim of creating an account will have an account that has all of those attributes of his. This implies that every individual who has an account with a bank is basically becoming an object of that bank's class. As simple as that. So now so we, that's the first definition there. Apart from our classes having attributes, they would also have methods that determine what your objects can do. So, for example, a typical method or a typical behavior of a bank account class is that you can perform credit operation, you can perform transfers, you can perform debits, you can perform name enquiry, you can perform balance enquiry. Those are behaviors of your account class. Okay? I hope this makes sense. So let's actually lay some of these foundations. So we are going to, so I think the best thing is to actually create a class that bears that account name. So I'll create a class called account. Okay? So this class would basically have some attributes. It will have, let's say, public. So at this point, we are used to something being public. So for now, our attributes in this class will be public. So when we say public, it means anything that is declared public is accessible from anywhere in your project or from anywhere in your application. So let's go. We have an attribute called name. Okay, let's say just let's say first name. Let's have another one. Public string last name, and then let's say public string let's say identity number. Yes. So these are three attributes of uh, this particular class. Okay. So something else I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a class. I'll call it account test. Okay. So from this account test, I'm basically going to be so this is where I'm going to have my main method. Okay. Like we already know, you can't run any Java code without a main method. So we have this class now with all of these three attributes. So these are the attributes of this account class. So any object of this class is basically going to have these attributes too, or would be qualified to have these attributes. I hope this is making sense here. So like we said, your class is basically a blueprint for what your objects would look like. So an object of this class would have a first name, a last name, and identity number. So let's come over here. So we could give so the first step here is want to have access to all of these we need to have access to all of these instance variables here. Bear in mind that I call them instance variables, okay, variables that belong to the class. Okay, and so how do we access these instance variables? We can access them by creating an object of that class. Okay, access them by creating what, an object of that class. And don't forget again, I said a class is where you teach your objects how to behave. A class is basically where you create the blueprint of how your objects would also look like. So how do we create an object of a class? So the way we create an object of a class is by you you add the name of that class. Okay, so this is defining the fact that the object you want to create is of this particular class, account class, which is this class here. Okay, so let's go back here. So we are defining this here, that this is the object of the class that I want to create. Then secondly is I'm going to have a variable name for this object that I want to create. Okay, so let's say we call it this could be variable name, right? Equals, okay, then this new keyword there is basically saying, okay, this is going to be an object, but of what? Of account. So that's basically how we create an object of a class. Do we understand? This is creating an object of what? A class. Creating an object of a class. Now, so if we print this out now, subject is basically nothing. It's being it contains no value. So let me run this. So if you check here now, you will see that nothing gets printed. Okay. So by creating this now, a space is allocated for this object in memory, but nothing has been done yet. So let's move ahead. Now the next step is we want to define what our object is actually. So meaning we want to look at we want to create a blueprint, we want to create an object out of that blueprint. So how do we do that? We can do that by just doing so variable name here, which is the object we created here, right? Dot first name. So then we provide values for it. So here we could say Musa, which is my name. Then we'll do something like we could also do variable dot last name equals Ajibade. Then we could do variable dot identity number. We could do okay S70 20 20 23. Yeah, this was my matric number when I was in the university. So with this now, you would we've actually created our objects, and we've also assigned values to our instance variables, the instance variables that were inside of this class here. Okay, so at this point here, if I print the variable name and run this, okay, it still gives me the address of that object in memory. So but then now if I want to print this now, for example, you see that it prints the name that was assigned to first name. So however, there is a problem with this approach. The problem is that the value of this instance variable is easy to change from anywhere in your application. So I could come to another class and then change the value of that instance variable. So this is where encapsulation comes in. So encapsulation says hide direct access to your instance variables, okay, and provide access to them via public methods. So that's basically the idea behind encapsulation. So in encapsulation, what we just do is we don't want our instance variables to be public such that we can now access them from anywhere in our application. So we would block access to our instance variables, and then we would now create methods that will allow for manipulating of our instance variables. Okay, so how do we block access to these instance variables? We can do that by making this private, making this private, making this private. So instantly, once you go over here, you see that you have errors. And the error is because this instance variable is no longer open to the public. Bear in mind that initially it was public, now we've made it private. Now, anything that is declared private, whether a method or a variable, is only accessible from within the class it was created. Okay, I'll repeat that. Anything that is given private access is only available from within the class. So private is accessible only from within the class it is declared. Okay, so it means this code no longer works. We have errors here, and then basically I will just come over here. Good. So now the next question is how do we now provide values for all of these instance variables now that we've blocked access to them from the public? So we are now going to provide what is called uh, mutator methods or getter methods. Okay, mutator methods or getter methods to help you provide or Seta methods rather. We provide mutator methods or Seta methods to provide values for our instance variables. Okay, then we are also going to provide accessor methods or getter methods to fetch the values assigned to our instance variables. Okay, so how do we do that? The first step is the setter methods. So we'll go this way. Public, right? So bear in mind again that encapsulation is to hide direct access to your instance variable and provide access to them via what? Public method. So this method is going to be public, and then we are trying to create the setter method now. So what the setter method does is that it only provides a value for your instance variables. It's not returning information. It's actually collecting an information from you and then using it to set the value of your instance variable. So its return type is void, and then the method name will always begin with what? Set. And then the next will be what? First name. So if you look at that construct now, we are using this first name, we are using the first name here, and then we just append set to it. So that's the, it's just this is basically just a convention in Java. Actually, this method can be anything as long as it does what we intend it to do. But then this is the convention. If you go through a million codes on GitHub, this is the convention that people would follow. Now, so we've created the method, right? This method is going to take a parameter. So the parameter he is saying that whoever is going to call this method must provide a particular value. So and the value we want to actually provide there is also going to be what? First name. Meaning that we are using this method to set the value of this instance variable called what? First name. So before you can use that method, we are saying that whoever calls this method should provide this first name. Okay? Now, what we are trying to do now is whatever value is provided as first name by whoever calls this method is now going to be assigned to this instance variable on line 8. Okay? Whatever value is provided while calling this method is going to be what? Assigned to this instance variable on line 8. So this is what we are going to do. We simply do first name equals first name. Now, the first name here is basically supposed to refer to this one here, right? This one here is supposed to refer to what? This one here, while the other one is supposed to refer to this local variable inside this parenthesis. So how do we differentiate between them? We differentiate between them by doing what? This keyword. Okay? This here is saying that this first name is the one that is declared inside this what? Class. Do we understand now? So what we are saying is that whatever value is provided for by the caller of this method here, set it to the instance variable of this class. As simple as that. Now, if you are going to do the same thing for for last name, which is the other instance variable here, so I will just come over here and do public void set last name. Okay, again, last name is going to take a parameter for last name, and then this will be this dot last name equals last name. Okay, then we can do this for the third one, which is the identity number. Okay, so this will be public void set identity number, string identity number. Okay, then this dot identity number equals identity number. So with this now, we have provided mutator methods or setter methods for all of our instance variables. Okay, so at any point, if you are creating an object of this class, we can set those methods by using all of these setter methods. The second step, let me minimize the console. The second step is to provide this here, what I have on line 13, the accessor methods or getter methods to fetch the values that are assigned to our instance variables. So what we've done here is that we have created methods that would help us in assigning values to our instance variables. We now need a method, or we need methods to fetch values that have been assigned to the instance variables. So here now, okay, let me just do it right after set first name. So here now I'm going to create a method that would get the first name and return the value of the first name to whoever calls the method. So this will be public. So the return value this time is going to be what? string. Why is it a string? It is because the data, the instance variable we are trying to get is what? Of type string. So the return type is going to be a string as well. So this will be get first name, and the getter method would not take any parameter. Basically, it's just taking the value that you have assigned in your setter method and then displaying it and just returning that value here. Okay, so here we do return this dot first name. So bear in mind that in the setter method, we have assigned a value to the instance variable first name. Okay, we've assigned a value to this instance variable first name. So the getter method is now returning the value that was assigned in the setter method. So that's basically the gist behind the getter method. Okay, yes, we come back here. We then do the same for last name. So this will be public. Again, the return type is going to be what? String. Since last name is a string, so this will be get last name, no parameters, and then it will just return this dot last name. We'll do the same for identity number. So this will be public string get identity number, and then we return this dot identity number. So with this, we have actually achieved the goal of uh, encapsulation. We have hidden access to our instance variables by making them private. We have now exposed public methods that can be used for manipulating those. We have now exposed public methods that can be used for accessing and manipulating those instance variables. So now let's go back here. So previously, we created this object here, and again, I would repeat an explanation of this. To create an object of a class, the first step is the class whose object you want to create. In this case, it is what? Account. The next step is the variable name, right? So in this case, I've called it variable name. So I will change this now. Let me call it account one. Okay. So I can remove line 7. Okay. So account one is basically the variable name of the object, the account object we've created. And this new here is sending a message to your compiler that we are creating an object of account class. It's as simple as that. Are we if I believe that the explanation should be clear. If it's not clear, you can always rewind and then you go again. So, like we've said now, we have blocked access to everything private. So our object no longer has access to instance variables. What it now has access to are these what? Public methods. So let's say, so now let us call any of those methods. So we call it by using the variable name of the object we've created, which is account one dot. So you can see now we want to call set first name. Okay. So again, the implication of this parameter, like I've said, is that whoever calls it or wherever it is called, we need to provide a value for set for the for we need to provide an argument to this parameter, okay, or a value for this particular parameter. So when that value is passed, whatever that value you pass will now be assigned to this instance variable. So let's go back. Okay, so here I will just call it Musa. Okay, then the second one would be account one dot set last name. Okay, and you can use any value here, call it Ajibade. Okay, then account one dot set identity number, and then this would be it could be any whatever number you want this to be. Okay, so with this now we've actually set values for our instance variables using those setter methods. Now, how do we get those values back? We can do that by doing this. Okay, I'm using a printf. So this time around, I'll use first name. Okay, a placeholder for first name slash n, then last name Then I would have my identity number. So this is going to be okay. I'm dropping that to a new line. So we'll just do account one dot get first name. So account one dot get first name is going to return the value that has been set on line 7 here. Okay. Then last name will be account one dot get last name. Then the next one will be account one dot get identity number. So we are good. So if I run this now, so you see now that it returns exactly the information I've entered. Okay, so it means Musa Ajibade walked up into my bank. Then I instantiated an object of my account class for him, and now he has an account with me. His account has a first name, last name, and identity number. So here now you can see how this class serves as a blueprint or a guide for the kind of objects for the objects that we create. Okay, this class here is a blueprint for this class in the sense that it has actually told this object how to behave. It has told this object how to provide a value for your first name. It has told this object how to create a value for your last name and then the identity number. And it's also told this object how to fetch those values. Okay, so now let's assume that another user walks up to the bank and wants to create an account with that bank. So we can do this account, account 2 equals new account. So with this, we create a fresh object for that user. And then this time around, instead of hard coding the names here, I would want to use the scanner class to actually prompt the user to enter his first name, last name, and so on. This would further improve the experience and would probably shed more light into what we are trying to achieve here. So let's create a scanner equals new scanner. So all of a sudden now, the construct of this scanner makes sense. We can see here now that scanner is basically also an object, right? So when we say everything in Java is an object, this is basically what we mean. So this scanner here is basically an object of this scanner class. And in declaring it, we call this class, which is inbuilt by Java. However, account here is a custom provided class by us. So here is the variable name of the object, and then this new keyword to show that you are trying to actually create a new um, a new object. And then in here, I'm going to have system.in. System.in is a reference to your keyboard. It's telling the system to accept values from your keyboard. So here I would so if you want to understand more on scanner, I have a video on that on my YouTube channel as well. It's a very short one, about 14 minutes, and you can just quickly go through it. So yeah, I would now prompt the user, enter your first name. So then what we'll now do here is a string first name equals scanner dot next line. Okay, so now that what we've done here is we've prompted the user to enter a value on line 18, and then on line 19 we say whatever value the user enters, store it into this variable called first name. Okay, now that variable that is stored in first name, I'm now going to put it to use. I'll just do account dot set first name, and then the value of first name will be what? This first name that I provided here. Let me repeat that again. On line 18 here, okay, I've prompted the user to what? Enter his first name. At this point here, whatever name he enters is stored inside this variable called first name. And then I just call the set first name method using this account two object. And then whatever value that is stored here is now passed into the set first name method. Okay, then we do the same thing for the other variables. I'm going to prompt the user again. Enter your last name. Okay. Then string last name will be equal to scanner dot next line. I think it's because of time. I could actually just leave this here and then I'll just print this out here and say first name percentage. Okay, first name is I'll just do a concatenation and I'll get account 2 dot get first name. So let's run this now. Okay, so you see now that the first execution here has taken place. This print method has actually done the print work for me, and then here we are. Okay, so then from here now, I'm now being prompted to enter my first name. So and then here I'll just enter. Uh, let's enter Lionel. So you see now that I'm able to enter my first name, and then instantly here I'm able to print out the value of first name using this getter method. So basically, what we've achieved here is we've seen how we can use our setter method as well as our getter method to actually handle the manipulation of our instance variables. So as I don't want to make this recording quite long, I'm going to pause here, and then in my next recording, I'm going to be showing us how we can simulate the transfer, the credit and then the debit methods for this account class. So see you guys in the next tutorial, and bye for now.